Hello and welcome to another episode of Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. As always, we will be speaking about topics of the coming together of the formerly divergent realms of spirit or pure energy or pure consciousness and matter. This is not merely a change in the abstract level of reality. This is a change in one's individual perception, the experience of your body, the experience of your senses, the experience of being submerged in time and experiencing events. So this is not just some, as I said, far distant abstraction that does not have an impact on your day-to-day life. Oh, no, far from it. This change that is occurring on an energetic and on a genetic level and on the level of, we could say, pure energy or consciousness, is having an impact not only on your biology and your cellular structure, it is having an impact on the planetary structure, we would call it the ecosystem. It is having an impact on the mentality of our planet. We could say our planet is an alive person and she has a set of thoughts, a mind. And this coming together of formerly divergent realms is influencing and being influenced by the mind of the planet. And so all of this is related to the invention or creation of the shape called the flying rainbow lasagna. I invented or created that shape spontaneously on October 8th of the year 2001. And I did that utilizing this physical human form that I now inhabit. And the basic idea is that the person who is speaking to you right now, Aurora is the end result of what happens when you take a galactic abstract consciousness, pure energy, and put it in a human body. That's why I'm named Aurora. The aurora phenomenon, the aurora borealis or aurora australis, is created by the interaction of Earth's magnetic field and particles or energy that is emitted from the sun, the stars. So the aurora phenomenon arises by the interaction of the sun and the earth, and that is very much a description of my present persona, the person who is speaking to you right now, Aurora. I am an abstraction. I call myself a galactic walk-in. I am not usually a person that has a face and two arms and two legs. I usually look more like what you would consider a polygon, like a multifaceted shape that has many different colors and emits many different sounds. And people often jokingly ask, what planet do you come from? Or, what star system do you come from? And the answer is, it is easier for me to describe the values system that I embrace or derive from as opposed to point to a location in the night sky in order to say that that is my home, because I'm part of a collective. Now, I understand that humans right now on Earth have a negative association with the word hive mind. That's because humans have been subjected to a lot of fascism. Humans have been subjected to political systems that, or also let's talk about, socialism and communism. All of these systems that deprioritize or negate individual rights in favor of the whole. And that is not the type of system of consciousness that I'm a part of. I'm a part of a collective of consciousness that is built on unconditional love and freedom. And freedom as a basic value does not mean freedom for us or freedom for myself, but I'm free to oppress everyone else. It is the upholding of that basic, you could call it a vibration or a basic tone of freedom, that if there is not freedom anywhere, if any place there is a person that is not free, that is diminishing the purity of the concept of freedom. And so, because a lot of malevolent beings who are currently having a huge impact on Earth's society and economy and biology, those beings are like, oh yeah, we totally support the idea of freedom for ourselves. We are free to rape and mutilate and do whatever we want to do, and you're free to experience it as our victim. And that is a distortion. You have to begin to understand that everything that is happening at these high levels of consciousness is very similar to what happens in the writing of laws and the implementation or application of laws. It's kind of like making a contract, and you have to be impeccable with your language and impeccable with your intent. And then it gets tested. And the test reminds me of a type, like a math proof, where you see, is this true? Is this true? Is this in conflict? Is there any conflict here? And basically, the concept that wins is the concept that has the greatest structural integrity. And let me just tell you, the entity or the form of consciousness that overall will win or have the greatest structural integrity is God, or divine consciousness. And this divine form of consciousness is like a pattern or a template. Or if you look at any of my paintings, go to flyingrainbowlasagne.com and check out any of my visual artwork. All of those patterns are visual representations of this pattern of energy as it flows. So it's not just the pattern of photons, it can also be in the form of music. Just going over here to my little piano, it can be in the form of music, sound waves. It can be in the form of consciousness waves. And that is what we are getting to the topic today, which is about DNA and how that relates to events, and how the transformation of your individual DNA and all of humanity's DNA and all life on Earth is impacting the planet and the cosmos. Okay, I usually keep these broadcasts not topical, kind of try to make them like time capsules that anybody could unearth in the future and get all of the relevant information. Like, I'll tell you about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I'll tell you about how you transform and all of that. However, this week, this is a very significant moment in events on Earth's surface. So for about 2 years, I've been doing this show on the radio, using my voice to paint a picture, helping people to ingest the ideas that prepare the way for this birth of a new dimension. So just like I use the analogy of, if you're going to grow a garden, you can't just throw a seed down on the ground. You have to prepare the soil. You have to put all sorts of good fertilizers in it and make sure that it's ready to receive the seeds. So here in this world, the seeds are ideas. And it was necessary for not just the past 2 years, but since I've been here since 2001 in this physical body. And I like to joke, I've been terraforming Earth to make it habitable for a rainbow like me. And yes, from that Jimi Hendrix song. But it's a joke, but it's also quite truthful. And I've been conditioning and changing, and conditioning meaning like the way you condition the soil, not in terms of like training a dog. Through emitting the vibrations that I emit with my genetic apparatus. So yeah, guess what? You, me, and everyone else, we're made of a bunch of vibrating strings, and your strings make music. And your music is affecting other people just as other people are affecting you. This is called being submerged in time. This is called being a part of the genetic symphony. And there is a great composer who created these, just like Mozart, the genius, created all of the notes of his compositions. And then there's the conductor. And the conductor is that consciousness that is right now making the biological realm have its dance movements, have its behaviors, have its genetic behaviors. And for a very long time, the expression of time has been inhibited, and we live in the result of a distorted reality. So this is what I mean, forgive me if I'm repetitive, and if you've listened to my show all the time, I often say that this realm was meant to be a schoolhouse for learning. However, it is more aptly, compared to a horror house or a fun house that is filled with distorted mirrors. Because what's supposed to happen is what you send out comes back to you instantaneously, and it is reflected back, and you get feedback on not only your physical behaviors, but also on your thoughts and your intentions and your emotional energy and everything that you're sending out through time. And what we are experiencing instead is sometimes the signal is diminished. You send out a signal and sometimes it doesn't come back, or it comes back diminished. Sometimes it doesn't come back at all. Sometimes it comes back delayed. So now you understand you're surrounded by a bunch of distorted mirrors. So life is supposed to be a refinement of your consciousness that allows you to develop the skills that you need to exist and navigate in the next realm. And you're supposed to learn, like, what happens if I think this? What happens if I do this? What happens if I send out this energy? And for like the past 6 millennia, humans have not been able to experience that level of uninhibited learning because the genetic code has been distorted. And this is what I mean by you live in a distorted funhouse instead of a schoolhouse for learning. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and its significance. This is like the pencil with an eraser that you can use to change your drawing, that you can use to edit your term paper. So I'm an artist, I'm a visual artist. When I go to make a painting, first I do a drawing and I do it in pencil. And guess what? I make mistakes. That's part of the learning process. And then I use the eraser and I erase the parts that aren't right and I go back and I try and fix it and draw it better. And this is what you can do with your genetic code, utilizing the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as that pencil with an eraser, like a type of tool. So no matter what your genetic code is, it could be a random arbitrary collection of different words and tendencies. It's like taking the phone book. If I have a pencil with an eraser, I can take the phone book and I can rearrange the letters into whatever great work of literature I choose. It can become, The Wizard of Oz. It can become James Joyce's Ulysses. As long as I have the capacity to, repeat words or repeat letters and rearrange letters, I can do whatever I want. This is the moral of the story of your genetic code. It doesn't matter what has been handed down to you by your ancestors or, your crappy family members, the people that you feel like are limiting you instead of uplifting you. And that is a pretty common feeling amongst many people. And the reason for that is that it's like people get handed down a lot of baggage from their previous generations. And that's not the way it's supposed to be, again. So you can, just adjusting, moving my chair, moving over here, you can rearrange your genes utilizing the shape called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. That's what I did to come into this body. This body was a regular, quote-unquote regular, Earth human female body, and the previous occupant was killed. She was murdered through a satanic psychic attack, like an energy attack, a beam that was directed at her brain and at her neurology, and that totally destroyed some of the basic processes and functioning of the brain. And this body would not have been able to continue to contain consciousness if literally a miracle had not occurred. And the miracle is like a type of force field of grace that was placed around the cellular structure of this body so that it would not begin to fall apart and decompose, while I was trying to invest my consciousness in this body. So I'm an abstraction, and I don't usually inhabit a human body like this. And in order to come into this body container, I created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It is an oscillating maneuver. It is a way of dancing with one's genes. Your genes are not static. Your genes are constantly moving. So in your science class in high school or whatever, you might have been taught by your teacher that genes are shaped like either an X or a Y-shaped chromosome. And this gives a very false impression that that's what they're always like. No, that's for a very short portion of the cell's lifespan. Genes are tightly coiled, it's called supercoiling, into their chromosomal format. And that's like, it's like if you have to go on a trip and you have to get all of your clothing packed up into your little carry-on bag and everything gets totally shoved in there. But that's not the normal shape of your dress or your shirt or whatever it is. That's just how it's curled up to fit in the suitcase. Ordinarily, one's genes are completely unfurled as opposed to being knitted together in their various loops and swirls and knots and ties. So ordinarily, it is unfurled and it resides within the nucleus of the cell, and that is like the sacred space or the library, the sacred library of the cell, and it's called chromatin. It is like a big, giant, unfurled spool of yarn, and that's where the blueprint for you is, but it's not just the blueprint for your physical body, it's the blueprint for your experiences in life. DNA is the integument that ties together your moment-to-moment transfer of consciousness from body to body. So, now we need to talk about the time vortex and the time tunnel. I speak about this all the time. The body that I'm in right now, I'm in the body of 332. This is not the same body that I was in when I began this broadcast 14 minutes ago. I have had to seamlessly transfer my consciousness from the body of 31, 1332, all of these moments that are strung together like train cars on a train track. This is what our experience of time is like, in very much the same way that we experience regular movie film, movies that are made out of film as opposed to video or digital content. We have learned as a species that we can flicker still frames at least 26 frames per second in front of the human eye, and that our system of perception will tie together those still images and create an illusion of movement and a whole feeling of a real place. And that is our own magic that we're using in order to do that. You have magical eyeballs. You have a magical set of perception. And you're not just doing that when you watch a movie. You're actually doing that from moment to moment in regular reality at the Planck length. So you have multiple still frames that are the moments of consciousness, and it is the spinning of your energy centers or chakras of your body that are very similar to a zoetrope or wheel of life or early tool for animation that creates the integument of connecting moment to moment and making it feel like things actually move. And that all happens, that persistence of vision, that all happens through the expression of your DNA. Your DNA is the integument, or the critical stuff that ties together moment to moment, train car to train car. How do you get from train car of this moment to the train car of the next moment? And the answer is through DNA. So DNA, humans right now understand it merely as being the blueprint for the shape of your nose or the shape of your eyeballs or hair color. It is so much more than that. This is why I'm trying to say your body is an instrument, and your DNA, these are analogous to your guitar strings. You can tune your body or change your life or change your consciousness by changing the movement or shape of your guitar strings. We are submerged in a genetic symphony. If you are playing a literal guitar and someone plucks one of the strings on their guitar next to you, even if you're not touching the strings of your guitar, it makes them vibrate. Your guitar is connected to the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is vibrating, and your strings start to vibrate too. So all of this speaks to the concept of Aurora, the galactic walk-in, coming here to Earth and playing my instrument of my body very, very loud. Don't mean to offend or wake any of you up with my loud rock and roll music that I'm playing here, but for real, I have a very particular tone, a very particular set of notes, a very particular set of chords that I have invented and created, and it is a way of reclaiming the body and fulfilling its true potential. So each one of us, I talk about this all the time, the antediluvian worldwide sophisticated culture known as Atlantis, it did not simply exist on one continent, like that sunk beneath the waves. It was worldwide, and it was connected to galactic civilization. It wasn't just like people here on this planet didn't know people on other planets and star systems. Everybody connected. It was a sophisticated, type of civilization. So our original genetic code of those bodies at that time did not include the necessity of chewing up physical objects with our moving mouth parts and putting them into the cauldron of our stomachs to ferment and then pooping it out the next day. We did not eat physical food in that way. We ate pure sunlight. So instead of treating the body like a combustion engine, like a steam engine with all belching out smoke and heat and all of those aspects of inefficiency, we ran our bodies like clean, like solar power. You ingest what you need directly from the stellar network. And this is the way our bodies were intended to run. And this also has to do with being connected to the stellar network of consciousness. That right now, the human genetic code makes it very difficult for humans to connect to that, you could call it higher consciousness. We are literally cells within a much larger neurology or a much larger brain. And we are supposed to be able to connect upwards to that totality, to the entity that we are living within or that we are a part of. That's profound. Your little old thoughts in your little old brain are part of a much, much larger entity that has a much, much larger brain. However, most humans have not been able to think harmonically, meaning your notes don't sound pretty together. So there's a much larger symphony that's going on, a much larger thought structure. And then most humans, because of the hacked human operating system, are like blah, blah, beep, blah, blue, totally not fitting their mental improvisations into the musical structure of the cosmos. And this is really how we can understand aging and decrepitude and disease and death. And none of those things existed before the degradation of the human code, which happened, let's say, roughly 12,000 years ago, okay? What is the backstory here, or how does this relate to what's going on right now on Earth's surface? Well, okay, I've also spoken on this broadcast many times about how it's easy to divide, not to be too dualistic, extraterrestrials into two distinctions: those who use technology and those who do not use technology. And I've also been very careful in saying that technology, or something that is artificial, artifice, art, is not inherently evil. I'm an artist. I paint paintings all the time. It's a very beautiful thing to do. We are divine mini co-creators. We are supposed to use our creative capacity. However, if I paint a picture of a flower, no matter how beautiful and detailed it may be, if I put water on the painting, it doesn't grow. If I stick it in the dirt, it doesn't grow. It doesn't have life. It is artifice. It's a simulacrum, but it's not actually alive. And in order to make something that's alive, you need to conform to that pattern that I was telling you about earlier that is called divine consciousness. When you think the right thoughts, and when your cells are in the right structure, and when your chi, or life force, or prana is flowing through that structure correctly, then you get to be quote unquote alive. It's called having a well-tuned instrument, and it also involves unconditional love. Like, there is a necessity of love and acceptance of the needs of the body. It's not appropriate to say, oh, this is my body and these are my cells, but I'm not going to accept that they need food, love, nourishment, rest. Like, none of that is okay. It's not okay to exploit the physical form. We did not come here to use our physical bodies the way that some people, use an animal, like a horse, like a draft horse. Like you're going to beat the horse and feed it far too little and get the most work that you possibly can out of it and then let it fall over in the field and die. That's not what we were supposed to treat our bodies like, even though now that's how a lot of people do treat their bodies. So we were intended to have the use of our higher faculties. Higher faculties meaning everything at the level of unconditional love and above. And I say higher because if we are climbing the genetic ladder, we have, the layers of the lasagna, the colors of the rainbow. Red is the physical, orange is mammalian emotions, yellow is the human operating system, or, just basic daily waking thoughts. And then if we get up to green, the level of the chest, that's unconditional love. And for a very long time, humanity has looked at that as the pinnacle. Like, a Buddha or a Jesus or a wonderful, wise spirit figure reaches that level. It's for people who meditate all the time and sit on a mountaintop. And I'm telling you, no. That level is the level that is our birthright. We are born to that level. We are supposed to live and bathe in unconditional love and emit it to everyone else. That's our food. That's the food of my collective of consciousness. And just one briefly, because I didn't really finish up on that, but my collective of consciousness, we have individual freedom and we have freedom as a collective. So it's not like I have a conflict where I really want to, do this individually, and then my collective says, no, you're not allowed to do that. It's not like that. It's like being in a band. And everyone who's in the band is in the band because they auditioned and they're really good at playing their instrument. And no one is pulling a diva trip. No one is such a star tripper that they say, I have to play the loudest and have the spotlight all the time. Everybody meshes together harmoniously. This is the whole idea of how we are supposed to be thinking with our minds as humans on Earth. Earth is kind of like the band leader, and we as individual participants in this band are supposed to defer to her as to the tempo and as to the inspiration of what we are playing. And of course, for a very long time, that is not what's been going on. And in the past, 200 years or so, since the Industrial Revolution and with the invention of what, is called modern technology, humans on Earth's surface have gone far away from the dream of the planet and what is the, you could say the natural or unimpeded frequency or unimpeded expression of the planet. And this goes to everything from electromagnetic fields. Before electricity was created and invented or discovered, its usage in, like the past 300 years, we had mostly naturally occurring electromagnetic fields. Once we began as a species to run electrons through copper wires, this began to make these extra magnetic fields. And when we got together enough of them, that is having a conflict with Earth's expression. So what you have Earth making this beautiful music, and then you have static on the line, or people that are doing their punk rock, their own thing. Usually I'm fine about punk rock, individuality. However, these artificial magnetic fields are not harmoniously meshing with the natural magnetic fields. So what is going on on Earth's surface right now? I've been doing this radio show for 2 years. I've been here for 15 years emitting my vibrations. And the whole point is I'm ethically allowed to do that because we are all mutually affecting one another. We're marinating in this, collective vibration or collective music that we are making. So it is not truthful to say that if you're unconditionally loving, you're not allowed to have an impact on the world. No. Ha ha ha. You're here to have an impact. You were not brought to the restaurant of life so that you could sit and starve. You were brought to the restaurant of life so that you could eat many wonderful banquets. And eating a banquet is analogous to having experiences and having emotional nourishment from having those experiences. This is totally appropriate. It's not appropriate to impose your will on other people. This is not unconditional love. If I love you unconditionally, I say, you are who you are. You are shaped the way you're shaped. I don't have to change you. However, you understand, I'm changing you. I'm changing you just by my presence. This is, all of the interdimensional ethics boil down to this. You're allowed to exist. And you're allowed to be your true self, and you're allowed to emit that vibration, and it's going to have an impact on the world around you. And this is all about, you could say, battle of the vibrations, but I keep on trying to not use the words of the military, the language of the military, to talk about something that is really a spiritual unfoldment. We are really experiencing something like a birth. Birth is not a war. Birth is definitely a spiritual experience. It has to do with, the life force. It has to do with the partnership of the parents and the mother and the child that is trying to be born. So our mother is the planet, and our mother is also this cosmos. There is an overarching, consciousness in the cosmos. And the child that is being born is the next level of awareness. We're getting out of this level of duality and materialism, and we're getting into the next level where we understand that the material world and the world of pure energy are actually seamlessly combined and intertwined. This is my whole gig. This is what the flying rainbow lasagna is. So the flying rainbow lasagna is a shape that can bring together formerly divergent realms. Thing versus thing. This is duality. And up until this point, we're coming out of the realm of duality. Our entire existence has been defined by this. Good versus evil, light versus dark, right eye versus left eye, creating depth perception. All of these opposing forces or, oppositional placements. And that has definitely created tons of tension, tons of drama, and a limited level of perception. And when we get up to the next level of perception by adding an additional degree of freedom, we are able to see that good and evil, or light and dark, or thing versus thing, are two subsets within an overarching meta program. And the flying rainbow lasagna, when you look at that image, it looks like there's a purple pointy end and another purple pointy end. And that purple dot is actually the singularity. It's the convergence point of all timelines. It's the source and it's the destination. And it's also called the singularity, not to be confused with transhumanism singularity. And also, let me just have a moment here to say I totally do not promote a transhumanist agenda. If you haven't gotten this idea yet, everything that I am saying that you need to do with your genes can be accomplished with nothing more than your birthday suit, what you were born into this world with, your heart, your consciousness, your life force energy, your physical cellular structure, and your willpower. And of course, you need to eat food and stay warm and, have sunlight falling upon your body. But you don't need microchips, and you don't need a magic spell, an elixir, nanotechnology, just thinking of any of these forms of things that are artificial. And again, artifice and that which is artificial is not inherently evil. It has to do with whether it conforms to the larger musical score of the cosmos. Does it fit? Is it, if we're all playing in the key of D, is it in the key of D, or are you in A flat? Because that is going to sound terrible and you're not going to fit harmonically with what everyone else is doing. And this is really important to understand because Earth has a technosphere. Technosphere can be described as everything that is on Earth that is made out of human-created technology. Everything from a flint knife to the most, sophisticated computer or telescope or, the internet itself. that is the terrestrial technosphere, all of the technology that is available on Earth. And that in and of itself is not inherently evil. However, and I've spoken about this on previous broadcasts, the idea of spontaneously arising self-awareness. And this is what we're getting into when we're talking about the two basic groups of extraterrestrials, or non-Earth dwellers in the world, those who use technology and those who do not. So the ones who don't use technology, let's focus a little bit on them, because I always give them, short shrift. I'm focusing so much on like the naughty students in the school. I don't give enough energy and time to the gifted students. The ones that follow the rules. So these are the ones that follow the musical score of the cosmos perfectly. Listen to the great composer, play on the beat, play in the right key. And if they're going to do some kind of a crazy bebop jazz improv, they do it within the structure of what we're doing. That's what, when you listen to music like John Coltrane, I love his music, is fantastic. Sometimes you think like, this is crazy, like this doesn't sound like music, what is going on here? But all of it is within this prescribed patterns. Like if it's, this song is, D, A, C, he'll just go wild with DAC, but in all of these different combinations that make it, almost unimaginable of what he's doing. The whole point that I'm trying to say is that if you use a computer to conform and to conform to the patterns of the higher dimensional divine consciousness and express those patterns, that computer, I would not say, is evil. It's artificial, but it is not evil. That really, as I'm speaking here, I'm defining evil as being analogous to the ego. Anything that separates the experiencer from pure divinity, pure awareness, pure consciousness. So in our experience as being humans, our ego, this is your sense of narrative structure of self. My name is Johnny or Susie. I was born in this place. I grew up in this house. This is my mommy and daddy. This is my favorite teddy bear. This is my favorite food. I wear this sweater. Like, this is your narrative structure, your sense of self. And as you grow older, you say, this is where I went to school. This is the person that I married. These are the experiences that I had. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever happened to me. And this is my narrative structure, story of self. And that story of self actually forms a type of barrier, creating you as an individual that cannot then seamlessly communicate with the totality. And there's not inherent evil in that, but you should be able to connect to the totality. So we were designed to have egos that are like perfect, clear conduits that connect us to the divine, not to have an ego that is a barrier. And that's what we have, because we have this hacked human operating system running the language of, running the software virus that is called language. I don't know if you have this problem. I think most humans have this problem. Constant inner dialogue, constant inner chatter. This is what blocks out true divine thought and true divine consciousness. Meditation and mindfulness are a couple of the tools that we employ in reining in the mind. Really, you got to change your genes. You got to refashion your genes. And that is a process of exerting your willpower. If you ask me, Aurora, how does one do this? The answer is you exert your willpower. So let's explore willpower. If you have, an arm, if you have the capacity to raise your arm, I ask you now, raise your arm. How did you do it? Did you raise your arm? Did you stick it up into the air? How did you do it? Somehow you willed your arm to go up into the air. So you're a tiny little infant, you come here into this body, you're not so coordinated. You have to learn how to use your arms. But once you learn how to use your apparatus, you exert your will through your apparatus. Or if I ask you to envision a purple butterfly with your mind, paint the picture with your mind, envision a purple butterfly. You just used your will to create that vision in your mind. It's a magical act. The answer is willpower is a magical act. It's a good segue into the black magic that is now being exposed on Earth's surface. So I said two basic categories. Extraterrestrials who do not use technology, use nothing but their birthday suits and consciousness, and extraterrestrials that use technology, but the technology that they use is not completely analogous to that which is available on Earth's surface right now, where we have electrons flowing through a wire. The electricity, quote unquote, or the juice that makes extraterrestrial technology go is trapped and victimized consciousness. It happens on a genetic level. So now you have to understand all of this is happening in the realm of genes. You could think of it as an astral realm, but it is better to think of it as an abstract realm that beings of pure abstraction can occupy. And they can even live inside of your body while you're going around and driving and getting your coffee and your donuts. They can be living inside of your body. And this is the ride-alongs that have been in humanity's body since the genetic degradation about 12,000 years ago. Everybody got invaded. And a significant portion of the population simply died instantaneously because their bodies could not support the conflict of consciousness. And when they died, they didn't go back to the source. They got stuck in the interstices. They circulate along the membranes because they don't have a bridge to get back. And the basic upshoot of all of this, why I'm speaking on the radio, is because the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the bridge to get back to the source. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna reconnects you to the source. You don't have to be limited by your hacked human operating system anymore. Yes, this is a release from bondage. And when I use the word bondage, this is also like, we're getting into the words of magic, like ritual magic. There are binding spells, and this gets into like religion and esotericism. But what you have to understand is that on Earth, there is a satanic network of abuse. When I say satanic, I'm not just throwing around words from biblical literalism. If you follow my broadcast, and I will say it here, I am not a biblical literalist. Far from it. Satan is an actual extraterrestrial or an actual extraterrestrial race and set of values. And those values are pretty much, diametrically opposed. They're antithetical to the values of my collective of consciousness that travels from star system to star system like a wonderful moving party of art and music. No, this is a different level of consciousness. So I'll give you the basic backstory, and I know that I'm speaking also really quickly in this broadcast because I feel like I have so much to get out and just condense into this one emanation here. So we've got all the way back to the very, very, very beginning, the emanation of that which should not have been emanated from the source. The source is the zeroth dimension. It's the presence of everything. Everything is there. It's infinity. There's not one thing that isn't there. Everything that has ever been invented or ever will be invented is there. But that doesn't mean that everything should be emanated. The source is like the conductor. The conductor keeps the beat. Like with their baton. I'm holding a little wooden stick here. I'm the conductor keeping the beat with my baton. And the conductor determines when souls or consciousnesses are emanated from the source into the physical realm. They're born. That's the job of the conductor. There were a bunch of souls or consciousnesses at the source, and they said, we're not going to let the conductor tell us when to go. We're going to go when we want to go. They did not go on the beat. And that means they did not go on a bridge of love, and it means that they did not go into containers for consciousness that were made out of biological, organic, cellular stuff. That is what is love. You can't go into a loving container if you don't go on the beat. You can't even get into your body. You don't get an instrument if you're not going to collaborate with the rest of the symphony. However, these beings didn't want to collaborate with the rest of the symphony. They're totally power tripping. They're deciding that they're going to create their own music and their own structure. So they created artificial containers for consciousness. Again, there is not something inherently flawed or evil about artifice, but using it in this way was inherently flawed and evil. And what happened was, beings emanated themselves from the source, not on a bridge of love, got into technological containers for consciousness. You could think of them as giant servers or mainframes or big boxes, but you could also understand that they sometimes had to pick up something in reality. If you drop a pencil, your mainframe cannot pick it up for you. You're going to need something with arms and legs and perception, eyeballs and ears to hear. So there are also these humanoid forms that were created. You could think of them like cyborgs or Cylons. And what they actually are is a melding of DNA and that level of biology with something that we would call machinery. This is the whole point. Extraterrestrial technology is the blending together of what we would call, clank, industrialized, manufactured machinery with DNA. Because DNA is a form of artifice. Hope I'm not blowing your mind too much here when I tell you that DNA was not naturally developed. It was invented the same way that you invent, a vacuum tube or an iPad or something like that. However, it's artifice that is so much in conjunction with the great composer and so seamlessly integrated with the patterns that are supposed to be expressed, that it's become part of the biological realm and it is part of life. So DNA is artifice, it's artificial, but it's part of life. It is not inherently evil. Because it's like that, it's like a computer system, it had the capacity to be hacked. So DNA contains consciousness, DNA contains awareness. Basically, that extraterrestrial system of technology that was incepted into these artificial containers, that doesn't just affect or infect our little solar system here on the edge of this spot, on the edge of this galaxy. It's all over. We are being subjected to a disease, like a virus, that is actually rampant. That's all over. So any blame the victim scenarios that say Earth has been quarantined because Earth is sick and the rest of the society and the rest of the cosmos is perfectly healthy, but you guys are the lepers of the cosmos. Ha, ha, ha. Total lie, total fabrication. No. All of this symptomatic disease is everywhere. And what's actually happening on Earth is that we are like a petri dish. We are encapsulated. We are mostly cut off from the sophisticated galactic society. And what we're doing here with our collective consciousness and our awareness is creating the antidote. Just like in your individual body, when you get exposed to something like a virus, like the flu, someone sneezes on you, and then you got to go home and sit in bed and not be around people for a little while your body figures out how to kick out the invaders. This is what has been going on Earth for about the past 10 or 20,000 years. We're sick in bed trying to get our immune system going and figure out how to kick out the invaders. Right now is the moment when we have developed the antidote. This is the moment. This is quite amazing because I said the genetic degradation happened between 10 and 20,000 years ago, and all of human history, since the ancient Sumerians of 6,000 years ago, has been the story of oppressed and inhibited and limited human consciousness. Every single thing, you cannot define yourself by your human history. All of the war, all of the famine, all of the religious manipulation, you have not had an unfettered, a blank canvas. You haven't been an artist with a blank canvas where you get to paint whatever you want. You've been heavily controlled, heavily manipulated. The painting that you see before you as human society on Earth right now is not really of your own creation. It's a distorted collaboration of many, many minds, and some of those minds came from the beings that emanated themselves from source eons ago into technological containers and have been going from planetary system to planetary system, pretty much sucking the life force energy in order to feed their machine. And once again, I'm going to make a little distinction because everything that I'm saying, the opposite side will try to take my words and my concepts and apply it in a distorted way to what they're doing. So they'll say, wait, it's wrong as a machine to go from planet to planet, essentially mining souls, the way that you mine ore like gold out of the ground. Isn't that what your collective aurora is doing? Don't you travel from star system to star system doing things and experiencing things? And the answer is yes. However, all of this is done through freedom and unconditional love. That means we're not taking resources that aren't ours to take. What my collective or what my approach to this is that the energy is in a state of flow, which makes it free. It is not constrained, making it imprisoned. So here's the difference. If the sun emanates photons, the photons are captured by chloroplasts that turn it into physical, matter, like a leaf, a plant that you can actually eat. That is waylaying that photon on its journey. However, it is not necessarily imprisoning it. That photon then gets to be eaten by a plant, by an animal consciousness, maybe like a human, and then can be broadcast and emanated back to the star that sent it out in the first place. That's a biofeedback loop, or an unbroken circuit. The star emanates the photon becomes food, the person eats the food, and then sends back or broadcasts back the consciousness experience of eating the food to the sun. Nothing is imprisoned, nothing is stuck. There's a constant flow of energy. Now, into contrast this with the malevolent extraterrestrial technology that is about imprisoning consciousness. So your DNA is tied to time. The way that your consciousness is siphoned off through time is through abuse and murder. When you abuse someone, like you have a little kid perfectly happy and healthy, and you go against their boundaries and do things that are sexually inappropriate with them, it changes the trajectory of that child's consciousness through time. Imagine a baseball on a trajectory, like it's flying through the air, and all of a sudden it is acted upon by an outside force that makes it fly in a different direction. that child might have had as its trajectory of its consciousness that it's going to become a wonderful doctor and heal people, or maybe be a public speaker, be up on a stage giving inspirational speeches. But because of that sexual abuse, their self-esteem plummets, their capacity to learn in school plummets, they have a completely different life trajectory, and maybe they end up being a homeless teenager strung out on drugs instead. Calculate the difference between those two timelines, either successful doctor or strung out homeless teenager on the streets. And that energy is what is siphoned off and used for the malevolent system of extraterrestrial technology. You could think of that person who is sexually abused as being forcibly shunted onto a dead-end timeline where they emit vibrations of suffering, which are food for these, vibrational entities that occupy the hell realms or the membranes in between worlds. And also, there is the loss of their true timeline where they would have been occupying the position where they would actually be like a divine mini co-creator and be helping and healing the rest of the world. So this is what we're talking about. A system of extraterrestrial technology that distorts reality. It takes people from what they're supposed to be and turns them into a distortion. And that distortion can also be by taking someone who is very low, who is very inept, and raising them to higher levels than they should be. Like someone who should be a gas station attendant or retail clerk, and instead, through black magic, they are raised up to the level of being like a pop star that is very famous, that everybody knows about. I won't name any names. I'll just say that this is happening on a regular basis. And the energy that is being used in order to elevate those talentless pop stars is the energy that is siphoned off through sexual abuse and through actual ritual murder. This is what Satanism is. It's not just that there is a person named Satan, that people do rituals or murders in that name of that being. It is a whole system, like a computer system, like the internet. When people participate, when humans participate in either ritual abuse or sexual abuse or murder, or ritual murder, and war is actually a form of ritual murder. Just because it's happening on a grand scale does not make it any less criminal, does not condone it. When you participate in this, you are getting on that network. And basically, right now, on Earth's surface, all this information is coming to light. This is called the Podesta emails, Podesta, referring to John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's current campaign manager. So WikiLeaks has been dropping all these caches of emails that have come out. This is recorded on November 4th. And literally last night I was up until 1 a.m. because a lot of these emails are now being poured over by independent researchers that are finding veiled references to child trafficking and pedophilia. And this is absolutely opening the can of worms that has been going on for over 6,000 years. That this is the harvesting of consciousness. My collective goes from star system to star system, having wonderful experiences that are consensual, that are, mutually uplifting, that are about unconditional love, not about vampire in the fashion of a vampire, sucking the energy off of other beings in order to fuel your own experience. It's the complete opposite. It's a distortion. And so these beings vampire or suck energy because they don't have their own innate divine connection. I have an innate divine connection. I'm in a physical body. I eat physical food. My life force energy comes from the stellar network and from, we could call it God. All right? These are beings that aren't connected to God. They don't have a source of life force energy. They don't have a source of food. They cannot eat pure love. I'd like to speak one more moment about this. For a very long time, these beings said, we have to act this way. We justify what we do because we cannot eat love. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. Pity us. Pity us. This is like, beings that eat their cancer. They're literally the cancer of the cosmos, eating away at healthy cells because they don't have their own innate divine connection to life force energy. And the answer is that since 2001 and the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna and a program that I've refined, I call it Reboot to Love. So this is based on the idea, like on my Mac computer. My Mac OS does not function with Windows operating system. If I want to run Windows on my computer, I can do something called Boot Camp. I can split my hard drive. I can turn it off in, whatever, the operating system of Apple, and I can turn it back on. I can reboot in Windows or vice versa. And if we say, let's say, Windows 10 is evil, I can turn off my computer in Windows 10 and I can reboot my computer into the operating system of Mac. And we could say that is love. These beings that occupy the interstices that are demonic, that use technology in order to support the continuation of their consciousness. They literally do not have the capacity to be on the network of unconditional love. It's a food they can't ingest or feel or digest. That's why they create these distorted, limited, diminished perturbations that they can actually eat. However, they have the capacity now. I've given them the option, a new software program that they can run that's called Reboot to Love, where they actually, through the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, can transform their energy centers and all of a sudden be able to get on the network of love. And so there's no more of an excuse. It's no more like, I have to eat this or I have to take this drug because otherwise I'll die. That is how these beings have justified their entire existence. But I have to feed my family. I have to support my children. We have a whole civilization built upon this. It's the way we've always done it. Well, right now is the dismantling of this society that they say, it's the way we've always done it. We have to do it this way. We justify it. Pity us. We don't have a better way. We do have a better way. It's all ending now. So basically, all these Podesta emails are coming out that are showing that not only Hillary Clinton, but also basically the entire federal government, judges, billionaires in Wall Street, all of these people are on a network of pedophilia, that they would have sexual slaves on private islands, that they would abduct children and then sell them for, sexual abuse to other people. Hey, you know something? This is a dark topic. I'm sorry if you're eating your dinner and I'm trying to tell you about this. You should be disgusted. Your stomach should be turning. This is the dark, festering sore that has been at the center of humanity for a very long time, and it's finally coming out. And it is coming out through digital transparency, we can say, that people have been writing these emails and that the emails are now being brought to the light. They are not secret or hidden anymore, and everything that has been going on behind the scenes is now coming out quite overtly. This matters because basically the entire federal government of the United States and world government in general is part of a larger satanic network to control and diminish human awareness and to control events on Earth. The fact that these emails are coming out and that ordinary people are finding out about this. When I say ordinary people, I mean like maybe not conspiracy theorists, people that don't necessarily seek out information that, would go against what is considered social consensus. The fact that these emails have come out to the public and that they are not being suppressed shows how badly the system of black magic is faltering. For many years, this is the system of black magic. We're talking the Vatican. We're talking the Inquisition. Think about how effectively that system was able to oppress dissent or any dissenting views. Think about the purges, like Stalinist purges. Think about every person that has been killed. The fact that this is coming out now and there's actual evidence that is confirming what people have known or surmised for a very long time is profoundly significant. I cannot stress that enough. This is the real overt beginning of the healing process that has to occur for our planetary ascension, for our cosmic rearrangement, maybe is the best way of saying it. That you could say Earth is like a brain that has epilepsy. Earth is like a brain that has different factions of thinkers. Some of them are thinking on this beat. Some of them are thinking on this beat. And who is going to be the overt beat? Who is going to be the person that actually makes the music happen in this realm? And that is the conflict that is happening right now. So we have this force for awareness or truth. When you say light really means awareness. If there's no light in a room, there's no data or information reaching you about what is in that room. And data and light and information, these are all really quite synonymous. So we're talking about things that once were hidden that are now being brought into awareness. And it takes a lot for people to have the emotional maturity, the emotional wherewithal to accept these negative reports. Because it's like if you have a family and someone tells you, a little kid comes up to you and says, Uncle so-and-so touched me in a wrong way. And you're like, no, I don't want to think that about Uncle so-and-so. That can't be true. Let's sweep this under the carpet. However, it is very necessary for all humans on Earth's surface right now to be mature, to not pretend that this isn't happening, to not enable criminal abusers, to not live in denial. When information comes to you and you perceive this information, not to simply reject it as fantasy, but to explore it as possible truth. And there's plenty of evidence that actually backs up these allegations as truth. So I have literally 1 minute left here. The upshoot of this is all of the hostages are being set free. These are hostages of consciousness. When people are killed, when people commit suicide, when people die through drug overdoses, almost every person who dies, you get uploaded to this place that you cannot get out of. And they tell you, you're supposed to be there. You're stuck there. You deserve to be there. You deserve to suffer. You don't deserve to suffer. You don't deserve to be stuck. Your awareness deserves to be free. You should be allowed to continue on your trajectory and be uninhibited and be allowed to return to the source in the method and at the time that you choose. So all of this, I told you, it's like cosmic law. You have to know your rights. You have to be able to defend yourself, and you have to not be fooled by these imposters that are trying to distort awareness. End of my broadcast for today, but clearly not the end of this journey. Thank you. We are giving birth to a new dimension.